When you phone children who are confused about their sexuality, especially primary school children, it's going to have a wider reaching impact than you think. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England. And on this channel, you'll get my views as a parish priest on all the Christian news that's coming out around the world. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment, and hit that notification bell. So today's story is beyond words, to be honest, coming out the Telegraph with a headline of Boy 4 allowed to join Church of England school as a girl. Ministers pledged to intervene after parents claim the child's sex was hidden from classmates who were traumatised to learn the truth. It's a young boy, a 4-year-old, who entered into a Church of England school, not just a state school, but a Church of England school, and was allowed to present himself as a girl from the age of 4. It's really quite shocking. And we're going to see in this article the effects of letting this happen, not just on that boy, it doesn't really speak about that, but on the other children around him. The child's sex was hidden from classmates who were described by parents as traumatised when they found out. Of course, they would be traumatised if you're thinking that your friend is a girl and then you find out that they were a boy. And remember, we're talking 4-year-olds, and this happened over a period of years as well. One of the parents of a child who was friends with the trans girl told the Telegraph that the school had robbed her daughter of her childhood, as she struggled to come to terms with learning her friend is not a girl and that the teachers had lied to her about it. So we see the wider implications of this. But this poor girl who was friends with this boy who presented as a girl, years later found out that it wasn't a girl, it was a boy. So they would have been playing together, spending that time in classrooms, spending that time in the playground, playing as girls will. And then suddenly finding out that everything that you thought of this person had totally changed. But the implication of this as well is that, as it says, that the teachers lied to her about it. You know, teachers who you trust, teachers who are there to teach you, teachers who, when you're upset, you go to get comfort, teachers who you build up a relationship with, and suddenly you realise, oh, you were in on it as well. So if you were in on it and you knew this, you didn't tell me, you've lied to me. And the trust breaks down. And for a primary school child, that must have been huge. This primary school in the southeast of England allowed the boy to join the school as a girl 3 years ago when he was 4 years old. Remember, we're getting into safeguarding here. It's not only for that child, but the other children in the school as well. So my safeguarding brain kicks in, and I would be looking at the whole situation. What's happening? What's the family dynamic? Why are they moved into the school? There's lots of questions that are not answered in this article, but there should be procedures in place to not only help this child who is identifying as a girl when he's a boy at 4 years old, but also the bigger, wider story and the context of what is happening at this particular time, at this particular family. So the child is now in year 3, which is for children between 7 and 8. The parent at the school told the Telegraph how the trans-identified child formed a friendship with her daughter and some other girls in the same class, and she welcomed him to play dates. The mother, who was formerly a non-teaching staff member, had been told by the school not to disclose the child's biological sex to anyone. So there's two big things here. Firstly, play dates. That's where children go to each other's houses to play with each other after school. Could you imagine that as a parent, you've now found out that this boy who you thought was a girl was coming over to your house playing with your daughter? You know, that's a whole trust thing there, going around, going into the garden, perhaps going upstairs to the bedroom to play with the toys up there. You know, it must have been horrendous for those parents who had welcomed this boy into their house thinking he was a girl, and then finding out, actually, we've been caught up with the lie of the school, which goes on to the second part. This mother was formerly a non-teaching staff at the school and had been told by the school to not disclose the child's biological sex. I don't know how they told her or what they told her to say and not to say, but what we know is that they told her, you've now discovered that this boy who is presenting as a girl is a boy, and you're not allowed to tell anybody about it. And again, where does safeguarding come into this, especially as that parent perhaps knew that there were play dates happening outside of school hours. The parent said her daughter started behaving strangely last term, including by refusing to talk or listen to the radio on the way home, hiding under the table, and suffering from stress-induced insomnia and constipation. She said that after repeatedly asking her child if something was wrong, her child told her earlier this month that she knew the secret that her classmate was really a boy. The mother said her daughter was distraught, that her friend had lied to her, and that she had been holding hands with a boy. And this is the effect of what's happened on just one of these children who knew this boy. They felt that they'd been lied to, they couldn't talk about it. And when you can't talk about things, especially as children, and it's very hard sometimes to get children to speak about truth, and they don't want to in some cases. And we'll find out why this girl didn't disclose straight away to her mother about the secret. But it manifests itself in different ways. And we can see she started to withdraw and internalize, and it started to have an effect on her body. So as we have the school affirming this boy, the effects on the other children are starting to increase to the detriment of their health. She said the trans-identified child had been flashing their willy at the girls. He is believed to have told them in the toilets about dark spirits that will suck their souls out, and said it is a deep secret that she is actually a boy, but they mustn't tell anybody. No wonder the children and this particular child couldn't speak to her mum. She was scared. She was scared that dark spirits will suck her soul out. So it took an internal effect on her and made her ill by placing this child into this situation. And remember, this child should have been cared for properly in the first place, has now affected other children. But what is being said, there's got to be huge questions, first and foremost, about why this was allowed to happen to a 4-year-old child who identified as a girl who was a boy. The mother and other members of her family have repeatedly raised concerns about the safeguarding of children at the school in the past 2 months. However, they said after correspondence and meetings with the school and its governors, they believe that they have been stonewalled. And this is where now you're getting into trust with the parents and the school. They know that something's going on. They got concerns about safeguarding. They go to the school. They go to the governors. They want answers, and they don't get anything back. How would you feel when you've got your precious child in that school? You've given them over for an education, to be looked after by them, to be built up, to be educated, and then you hear about safeguarding concerns, you raise them, and the school's just like, no. She said, I just want my daughter to be a child. The school's actions have robbed her of this, and that can never be given back. And this is the reality, and this is so sad. You know, that girl and other girls who are affected by this are just 7, 8 years old. My daughter's that age. To feel that her child has been robbed of her childhood is just, to be honest, it's just heartbreaking. How you build up and affirm her in all of this, with her always remembering what was said to her, what was shown to her, and how she was lied to by the boy and by the school, the teachers. It's going to be a long road to her recovery. The mother said she had withdrawn her daughter from the school this week after the school refused to allow her to learn from home while her mental health recovered. So there's things we don't know going on there. I don't know if the boy who identifies as a girl is still in the school, but obviously this mother said, let her learn from home, and there's other complications in that, I know. I think the only option she had anyway was to pull her child out, to look after that child, to homeschool her herself. You imagine now her trying to find a new school for her child, how many questions she's going to ask because of the trust that's been broken down with one school. Yes, not all schools are the same, but the question is, what are your policies? What happens in these situations? You're going to follow the same policies as that other school? And also the effect on the child. She's grown up, probably, I can only assume she's been there from the beginning, from reception. Now she's had to leave her friends. She's had to leave that group that she's grown up with. And now she's at home by herself and will only get to see her friends after school. She loses the playtime, the time in the classroom. It's such a sad situation which wasn't brought upon by herself. It was brought upon her. The Church of England's guidance for schools on bullying, titled Valuing All God's Children, which includes the forward by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, states, the protected characteristic of gender reassignment only works one way. Not being transgender is not a protected characteristic. Consequently, schools can make adjustments to meet the needs of trans pupils without being accused of discriminating against non-trans pupils. So the guidance can say all these things, but the reality is that we know that that boy was in a changing room with those other girls for years, and at points, or one point, or I don't know how many times, was showing his willy to others and then saying stuff about his secret and then telling them this horrendous thing about their souls being sucked out. Does this guidance take into consideration the consequences of affirming all of that on other children? When the Telegraph asked the Church of England about the case of the 4-year-old children, it said that this was still its advice to their schools, pending an update in the wake of the government's draft guidance. So the government is updating their guidance to make sure that things like this do not happen, especially in primary schools, that children cannot come in and then start saying, I'm a different sex to what I actually am. And that's going to come in. But, you would think as the Church of England, as we hold on to the Christian values, as we are taught in the Bible that are a man and a woman, and that's how God created us, that the Church of England guidance would be different from that of the current government guidance, which doesn't protect children or schools to stop this happening. But the guidance from the Church of England, and being a Church of England school, the guidance from the Church of England would be different to that of the government's guidance, and saying, actually, as Christians, this can't happen. We can't, as it said before, make adjustments to meet the needs of trans pupils. That's the Church of England here affirming that, and affirming that in primary schools as well as secondary schools. You'd think it would be different, and it's disappointing that the Church of England guidance isn't different and leading the way for the government. It shouldn't be the government dictating the Church of England that this shouldn't happen. It should be the Church of England dictating to the government. The Church of England said the guidance was how to prevent homophobic, transphobic and biphobic bullying in schools, and claimed it was not guidance for schools to help them provide for gender questioning children. The school told the concerned parent that its response to the transgender child was in line with the Church of England guidance and the Department for Education guidance, which just contradicts what the Church of England spokesman said. The question is here as well, are schools now so driven by policy from the government and from the Church of England that they have to follow that guidance, that they can't go back on this? Are the school just saying, we have this situation, we don't want to have this situation, but there's nothing we can do about it? Is this why the government now is changing their guidance? If they do, they have to absolutely nail this to protect not only those children who are in these situations and very confused, and their family situation as well, but the implications of this happening on other children and their families. As I said at the beginning, there are just no words. It's a pretty horrendous story, and I feel for those families who have been so affected by this and those children, and I do pray that they will come through with an understanding, but they have lost so much of their childhood already. Put your comments below on what you think about this. What can you think about this?